If you've been hooking or punching with a gripper strip frame, I'm sure you've noticed how sharp the gripper strips can be. Hi, I'm Amy from Doodle Dog Designs, and today I'm going to show you how to make a frame cozy that you can put around the gripper strips to protect your hands and your arms while you're hooking or punching. Let's get started. You're going to need 2 long strips of fabric and some elastic. I'm using denim and flannel here. I like to use denim on the underside of the cozy because it's stronger and it's going to provide more protection against the gripper strips. And then I like to use a soft flannel on the outside part because that's the part that will be touching my skin. You could use other fabrics if you want. Just keep in mind that you want to use something that's strong enough that the strips won't poke right through. I'm using Doodle Dog Designs frame that has a peekaboo hole in the bottom, which makes it perfect for rug hooking or punch needle. To determine how long your strips of fabric need to be, you need to measure the distance all the way around your frame. Mine measures 50 inches. So you want your strips of fabric to be the distance all the way around the edge of the frame plus another 12 inches or so. I'm going to add 13 inches so I have an inch for seams, and then I'll have an extra foot of wiggle room because you don't want it to be super tight on there. You want it to have room to kind of give around the edges. So I'm going to make mine 63 inches, and then I want it to go around quite a ways around the edge of the frame here so that it will cover everything and not come off easy. So I'm going to kind of eyeball this, and then I'm just going to double that so I make it 6 inches. This is not an exact science, so don't worry too much about your measurements. Just make sure that it's big enough that it's going to wrap all the way around. So I actually cut my strips of denim from some old jeans. I don't know anybody who has a 63-inch inseam, so I did have to piece together, and I just sewed the pieces together and then I pressed the seams. So my end result here is 63 inches by 6 inches. And for the flannel, I was using scraps of flannel. So I did end up with some seams in the flannel also, and again I just sewed the 2 pieces together, right sides together, and then pressed the seams. The elastic I cut at 30 inches, which is 50, my original measurement all the way around, times 0.6, so 60% of your original measurement is what I'm going to use for the elastic. You'll need 2 pieces of elastic. You're going to have one on each side of the cozy. Use elastic that is 1/2 inch to 5/8 inch in width. Take your 2 strips of fabric and you want to put them right sides together and pin them together all the way along each long edge. It will make putting the elastic in easier if you make sure that you have all of your press seam allowances all going in the same direction on both pieces of fabric. The next step is to sew a seam all the way along each long end, starting about 3/4 inch in. So I'm going to make a mark at 3/4 inch. I'm going to put my first pin, line it up with that mark, and then I want to start sewing right there. Then come down to the other end and make the same markings. And that's where you want your stitching to end. So you want to leave 3/4 inch on both ends unstitched. I'm going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once you have the seam sewn on both sides, turn the fabric tube right side out. Then you want to press the tube so it lays flat. Now this next step you could skip if you want, but I think it gives it a more professional look if you do this. I'm going to top stitch all the way along each edge, each sewn edge, still leaving this 3/4 inch unsewn. So stopping at 3/4 inch on all 4 sides. And I'm going to stitch pretty close to the edge. As you can see here, it just gives it a nice finished look to have that extra stitching there. So I'm going to be pretty close to the edge, probably about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge on each side. After you're finished top stitching, make a casing for the elastic. My elastic is 1/2 inch wide, so I'm going to make my casing a little bit wider so I have a little bit of wiggle room. So I'm going to sew 3/4 of an inch away from my top stitching. If you didn't top stitch, you can just measure from the edge of the fabric. Again, I'm going to start 3/4 of an inch in from each side, and I'm going to stitch 3/4 of an inch away from my top stitching all the way down both sides to make the casing for the elastic. Now I have both casings sewn, so the next step is to insert the elastic. I usually use a safety pin to get the elastic through. I put a safety pin on both ends. And then, since all of my seam allowances are going the same way, I can figure out which way they're going. I can feel in here the seam allowances on this side. So I want to start on this end and work my way this direction, and that way the safety pin should just slide on by the seam allowance. If you go the other way, sometimes it gets caught between the seam allowance and the fabric, and it's hard to get it on past that. Once you get to where the other end of the elastic is at the end of the fabric, it's best to use a safety pin and pin it in place so it doesn't come on through the casing. Now I'm going to open this up and sew the end of the elastic right here at 3/4 inch in from the edge of the fabric, and I will do that on both sides. And then I will repeat this elastic process on the other side of the cozy and add elastic to it also. After you have the elastic inserted, fold the tube in half. You want the sides, the inside part, the denim in my example here, to be together, and then pin the 2 pieces of denim together, keeping the outer fabric away. So all the way across the inner denim pieces. Now that I have sewn the seam, I'm going to take it to the iron and press the seam open. After you have the seam pressed, you want to also press in the edges of the denim, and then fold the flannel over and then press under about 1/4 of an inch on one side of the flannel fabric and fold it over the top of the other edge of the flannel fabric and pin it down and sew it in place. I'm going to use a whip stitch to stitch this flannel together all the way across. After you finish hand sewing that seam, it's all finished and ready to stick on your gripper strip frame. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe below and click the like button. I'll see you next time. Bye.